for a quorum, and we have, oh, sorry. All right, so there was an intention to deal with the item 32 as a PX item, but we've taken advice and we have redacted one of the elements of the papers that isn't required for the consideration of the papers. So the paper is on the hub redacted, and that will be put on the public side of things as well. So we will deal with item 32 before we deal with the PX item. So if we could, so we'll move to the terms and conditions of a proposed loan to the Canterbury Cricket Trust. And if John, if you could come to the table.
Excuse me, Leanne. I'll be sitting back from this discussion.
No, that's fine. Just and Tim. Yeah. So Tim and Anne have sat back. Right, John.
Thank you, Leanne. On the 5th of March, the Finance and Performance Committee considered and resolved to offer a conditional loan to the Canterbury Cricket Trust for the provision of floodlights. One of the terms and conditions was a security or guarantee that the loan would be repaid in full by the due date on terms and conditions acceptable to the council. The chair and deputy chair of the committee were given a delegation to approve these. One of the underlying premises of that decision-making process was the probability of a third-party guarantee. Council staff were advised on Monday that such a guarantee could not be given in the time frame required to confirm the provision of floodlights in order to get a leading role into the Women's Cricket World Cup. Officers then prepared a short report examining alternative terms and conditions which may or may not be acceptable to the council. The approach that we took was one of our more traditional risk management methods, identifying risks, interest repayment, principal repayment, other, examining the size of the risk, examining the probability of the risk actuating, identifying what, if any, mitigations could take place, and then making a call on the residual risk to council. The reason we took this approach is the committee made it very, very clear that their decision was based on a very low risk to the council. So we took it upon ourselves to go into quite considerable detail in coming up with recommendations. The redacted report that you see in front of you misses one element, and should councillors wish to discuss that, we would need to go into the public excluded session of a meeting. For good reasons that I don't feel able to discuss in public. The report is reasonably logical and speaks for itself. It aims to be reasonably objective in terms of risk management It does not consider whether or not a loan should be granted. That decision's been made, but it does consider some recommendations to the council on what acceptable terms and conditions may look like. I'm very happy to answer any councillor questions.
Good. Do I have any questions? Sam?
Yeah, thank you, John, and thanks for bringing it back to the committee or to the council. I think that's entirely appropriate. Firstly, I mean, obviously there was an announcement yesterday in terms of the World Cup finals and things. What implication would this, today we've obviously got two options. We've got to proceed with it on these terms or to insist on an underwrite. If we were to insist on an underwrite, is there any impact to those games?
If the council were to insist on an underwrite and the trust could not secure an underwrite, the information that staff have from the trust is that the trust would not be able to confirm the provision of floodlights in order to secure the leading role in the World Cup, and the final may go to another location. So that's information derived from the trust, but that is our understanding. That is not to say that another underwrite or guarantee may not be forthcoming. It's just that the trust have advised us that at this late stage, it would be highly unlikely.
Andrew and Jake?
The General Security Agreement referred to in Resolution 2E, that would be a security agreement over all of the assets of the trust?
Good question. At present, the trust are able to offer a general security agreement over the pavilion and the lights. They are not immediately able to extend that agreement to the former horticultural hall. The reason for that is the financial arrangements under which the trust have acquired the hall are, in my layman's terms, subject to a bequest, and they would need to go to the donor and make legal arrangements to enable that to happen. What I can say is that from staff's knowledge of the condition of the hall, it needs work, it's old, it is not as good a physical security in terms of maintenance and suitability as the other trust assets. I also have to say, to be fair, that a general security on trust assets on council land is not as good, is not as robust as a guarantee that the loan will be repaid. So I do need to, if that wasn't explicit enough in the paper, I do need to make that explicit to councillors.
That has made it clear. So that would be a first ranking security?
Oh, absolutely. It's customary that whether it's any other not-for-profit community-based organisation, we go for top of the rank.
So there is no other call on those assets, except for the arrangements around this bequest that you talked about?
We would, whether there are any other calls, if there were, we would be the top, we would be first ranking.
And we know that for certain?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, if that's the terms and conditions, that's what we would normally expect. And we wouldn't proceed if that were not the case.
What we've got here is a general security agreement or a specific security agreement. It doesn't specify that must be ranking above any other mortgages or claims over those assets.
In which case, I would suggest that recommendation is amended to make that abundantly clear.
Thank you.
The words first ranking inserted.
Jake?
Two questions. What's to stop the trust going and getting private finance from, say, a bank And secondly, in order to claim any of these assets, would that need to be an order of, or a resolution of council, or would it be a staff-generated process?
Yeah. Two good questions, and I can answer most of them, and I'll let you know the bits that that I can't. I am not a trustee, so I can talk in general terms. The trust is a not-for-profit organisation, and the trust's assets are community-focused assets on council land, and essentially they are in the same position as a Mount Pleasant Community Centre, a Theatre Royal, a piano, that they, because of the nature of the security and the purpose of the business, they are not-for-profit. They don't have the same access to commercial funds. I would guess that if they did, the interest rates would be considerably higher, but that's purely speculation. If a trust defaulted and we were to call on the security, I would have to check with our legal services and financial services advisors on the procedure. My inclination is that councillors would certainly be involved in that decision because it may have a number of implications.
Just to clarify, those securities aren't good enough for a bank, but they are good enough for us.
Council offers loans to non-for-profit and community-based organisations primarily because other loan funding sources are restricted, and you're dead right, that's why.
Yeah, I'm just taking some additional advice because I think the redacted part does offer another solution, and but it's redacted and people can't discuss it. So
yes.
We may have to go into PX and discuss it and come back out.
Thank you, Leanne.
Sam.
John, just the other thing, I guess I'm hoping you can give us a wee bit of context in terms of the underwrite, because, and I appreciate there's a PX element to it,
yep.
but I mean, obviously the understanding we had last Thursday was that that was forthcoming.
Yeah.
It seems to have got to Friday or Monday and then that's been pulled.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that at all, acknowledging there is a PX nature to it?
Sam, my update would be speculation and guesswork, and I'd prefer not to guess on something like this in an open session. I'd like to get a bit more
So maybe
advice.
if I can rephrase it then, have the trust advised you anything specifically as to why the guarantee or the underwrite has been pulled?
Time. Principally an underwrite is a complex process, and a potential underwriter is not in a position to do this. Apart from that, no, I can't offer you any other advice on that.
Yes, I'm just trying to understand. Last question is what's changed since Wednesday to Monday?
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to deal with this.
Yeah. My advice on that would be guesswork, which I'd be reluctant to misinform you, Sam. Sorry.
It may well have been an assumption about what would be acceptable to the council as well. But we'll discuss that. Jimmy.
Thank you, Chair. Staff recommendation 2.G. When the fundraising strategy or annual report will be ready?
We would ask for the fundraising strategy prior to drawing down a loan. So we'd expect it absolutely right now.
Yes, sir.
An annual report on the anniversary of the granting of the loan every single year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted, do we know if New Zealand Cricket has been approached for an underwrite?
Sorry?
Do we know if New Zealand Cricket's been approached for an underwrite?
No.
And is that something that we could check out?
The council are not building the lights. We would rely on the Cricket Trust to have covered all of those bases. It's really not the business of a council department as a custodian of council loans going around and looking for these underwrites. We would expect the trust to do that.
But wouldn't we ask some questions about if the previous underwrite is no longer? Wouldn't we be asking what other sources of underwrite they've considered?
We have asked the trust to look at all options. We always do that.
Have they stopped looking for an underwrite?
Yeah.
Have they? Have they stopped looking for an underwrite? Because I don't believe they have.
Yeah.
They continue to look for an underwrite.
If you would like, I can try and get that information, but I don't have that with me at the moment.
We're going to go into PX anyway for a session in relation to the redacted material.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave that question to there as well, because we may be able to answer it.
Okay, thanks. And just related, I mean, I was just interested to know if
I have a member of the trust sitting behind me who's probably able to answer that.
And I'm going to, when I move the PX part, I'm going to invite councillors to consider that he remain for the purposes of questions only, and then we'll return to the formal part of the meeting.
Just at a high level, putting the underwrite to one side though, do we know if New Zealand Cricket has made any contribution to this?
Again, I would have to ask the trust that.
We will have an opportunity to. Jane.
We obviously agreed on a resolution resolution at the Finance and Performance meeting. Does that still stand at this point in time? There's obviously a variation to it here, and if you didn't agree with it and you said, look, we've got some pretty clear terms on the table, you either make it work or you don't, then you just simply vote against this. That's probably a question for you then as a matter of process. If you're quite comfortable with what the council has decided, there's no need really for an amendment or anything, is there? You just simply vote against the recommendations you've got here, because we had a pretty clear resolution.
Yeah, no, it'll be voted up or down, but I'd like to take the opportunity for us to consider the redacted material.
Yep, of course.
As a council, because I think the focus last time was on the guarantee, which we now don't have. So now the focus moves to the redacted material.
I still think it's pretty simple, really.
All right. So I will move that we exclude the public. Are
we going to take this?
Well, should we do the whole resolution, or should we do this separately? Yeah. I'll deal with all of the PX papers now. So I'll move the recommendation to exclude the public, but that, Lee Robinson of the Canterbury Cricket Trust remain after the public have been excluded to present a deputation to the council on item 32. But to remain after the public have been excluded to, as they have knowledge that is relevant to item 32, that will assist the council. Right, so I'll move that. Do I have a second? Sorry?
Can we get that on the screen?
It is.
No, it's not.
It's coming up. So it's really the first bit goes first, doesn't it? And the second, So the first bit is that the resolution to exclude the public set out on pages 313 to 314 of the agenda and pages 5 to 6 of the supplementary agenda be adopted, and that Lee Robertson of the Canterbury Cricket Trust remain after the public have been excluded to provide advice to the council on item 32, as he has knowledge that is relevant to that item and will assist the council. Do I have a seconder for that resolution? Sarah? Is there any debate?
I mean, I actually don't think we need to go into PX for this. It's a really simple solution. We've got two options on the table, and I just don't think when this level of ratepayer interest and money that we should be going to PX for it. And
No,
I
we'll
don't
come
often
back to make the decision.
I
The
don't
decision
often-
won't be made here.
Can I finish?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I don't often vote to go into PX, vote to not go into PX, but I feel strongly about this one. I think we're going in for something that we should be debating in the public entirely. So I won't support it.
Yanni?
Yeah, along a similar vein, I don't support going into PX on this. I think there is public interest in it, and I don't see the reason why we would need to go into PX. I also feel uncomfortable having one party come into PX. I understand possibly that we've done that in the past, but I just don't think it's a good look.
Yeah. Mike?
I'll support going into PX. I think this term, what we've seen from this council, is so many of our items that would have been in PX actually be debated in public. We clearly have a resolution, a set of resolutions that has something redacted in it, and therefore we can't actually discuss that in a public environment because of the nature of it. This is actually a sensible approach and will ensure that final debate is done in public.
Andrew?
Yeah, much as I would love to be able to do this in open and absolutely acknowledging the public interest, there are times when there is information which is commercially sensitive or information that doesn't belong to us. My view in this case is that, and I'd hoped we wouldn't need to, but that we do need to go into public excluded so that we can have the discussion that we need to have about the information that needs to form a part of our thinking so that we can get to the right decision. The fact that the decision is going to be made in public after we've been in public excluded only to discuss that information that we cannot discuss in the open arena. And I think it's become obvious that our discussion so far has been limited by the fact that we're not in public excluded. That's a good reason for us to do that, but just for that purpose. And also to stress that the purpose of Lee Robinson remaining is to assist with information that will be useful to inform the discussion, not to be here to listen to the debate or to influence the outcome in any way. This is just a very practical reason, a very practical solution to a discussion that we need to have, and I believe we need to be able to have that discussion to reach an intelligent and informed decision.
So just before Sarah closes the debate, I'm going to resolve to move that we come out of public excluded once we've just dealt with this one item and then debate it immediately in the public arena. There is no intention for this decision to be made in the public excluded section. It is so that we can discuss the implications of the redacted elements of this report. I think Andrew's touched on the strongest point here, which is it is not information that we own. It is information that has been provided to us. It has been provided to us in good faith. We cannot debate it in public, and it is extremely relevant to the decision. It is more relevant to the decision now because the guarantee that we understood would be available in terms that would be acceptable to us is not available. And this is down to the wire, and I think it's really important on us as decision makers not to leave this to really essentially the roll of the dice on the day. So I really do ask councillors, please just allow a short period of time so that we can ask questions about the redacted information and take that into account as we make the decision without reference back to the detail of it in the context of the debate that will immediately follow. Sarah.
Thank you. Now, in many ways, I agree with Sam. Like, it's a really straightforward decision, this one. You're in favour of it or you're not. But it was actually questions from councillors that weren't able to be answered by staff because it wasn't their information and it would be guesswork. And that has led to us needing to go into PX to get the answers to those questions. And those questions actually came from councillors who now don't want to go into PX. So I think that's a little ironic. Thanks.
All right. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. It's hard to tell. So division.
The Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor Chen?
Yes.
Councillor Chu? No. Councillor Coker?
No.
Councillor Davidson?
Yes.
Councillor Galloway?
And so Scandrett.
Councillor Goff?
No.
Councillor Johansson? No. Councillor McDonald?
No.
Councillor Major?
Yes.
Councillor McLeod?
No.
Councillor Templeton? Tied.
So what happens now then? Oh, hey? The motion's lost.
So you're not going to public exclusion, decide.
It doesn't change anything. The information's in PX, we've read it, understand it, just deal with it.
Yeah, I'm just reluctant to take an adjournment. But I will. I'm just going to adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes. So if people could give me 5 minutes.